Hey guys, I'm Kate. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a chatty Q&A style video while I set up Scrivener for the first time on this computer. My new computer that I've had for like 6 months now. I'll also be telling you a little bit about my experience with this project that I'm setting up and how my editing while I write experiment is going, and also the kind of accidental pseudo experiment of only working on this project while I'm streaming. Now, as with previous Q&As that came from your writing experience and goals questionnaire, my hope is that y'all will also answer all of these questions in a comment down below. We're gonna start with a very fitting question 1, which is, what word processor do you use? I'm extremely interested on y'all's answer for this one, in part because I personally use multiple, but also I already asked this question on a Twitch stream, so I will put it up in front of me. You can see the results. But let us open up Scrivener, shall we? Hiya. I'm gonna go to fiction and we'll do novel. Ooh, what do I want to title this? Okay, for now, we're gonna go with Killer for Hire. I kept getting the question of why don't you use Scrivener anymore? I was getting it in some of my comments on writing vlogs, and I was getting it on Twitch streams, and the real reason was I had just been too lazy. I didn't know how hard it would be to use my old code that I'd bought Scrivener for in 2018, and anyways, I was being lazy. It was really easy. It took like a collective 12 minutes to find the code in my old email, get it, and then put it and download it and do everything else. Having said that, I do still love Google Docs, which is what I've been primarily using and working in part because I find it's by far the easiest when you're co-writing to use Google Docs and have a shared folder. The downside, of course, of Google Docs for me has always been that I have to separate out each chapter, because if the whole story gets too long, usually around like 30,000 words, it starts slowing down. But I love being able to go back and read it on my phone and really access it anywhere in the cloud. For other projects, I use Campfire Blaze, and I also use Word, usually if I need to send something to someone else for their approval. I use a medley of things, but often they're kind of project specific. Let me tell you though, I know it took me forever to figure out what this was, but by far and away, my absolute favorite feature in Scrivener. It has helped me so much. Please do comment down below. Let me know what kind of word processor or software you use. And like me, is it kind of dependent on the project? Now, a quick question too is, do you write linearly or sort of non-linearly? Do you jump around in your stories? I personally tend to write pretty linearly, but I jump past scenes if I'm not sort of feeling it that day. I loved hearing on the Twitch stream how some people outline non-linearly, but then write or draft linearly. And I'd really love to hear if this has changed for y'all over time. Good job, baby girl. There you go. The next question will kind of flow into this, but when I was in school, I'd spend all day thinking about my stories. So I'd write one scene in one class and then maybe not have time in my other classes to write a scene. And so by the time I got to like that 4th class or the 5th class or whatever that day, I would be writing a scene again, but it would be like 3 scenes ahead of time. Oh, hi Buffy. And then I would just kind of go back and forth all the time. So that has changed for me. I'm mostly linear now with the occasional I'll deal with that later, which rarely works out for me, by the way. So here's what I've done so far. I'm excited actually again to have one of my other favorite things about Scrivener is that I can't remember where it is. Let's see. Aha. Okay, writing tools. So edit, writing tools, and then name generator. So I've done a good job finally of naming all of the characters so far. So I need to fill out the rest of their profiles with information, which will help a lot, I think, especially as there's a lot of sort of secrecy, like what some characters know at certain times and not what others know. I'm calling it Killer for Hire right now because my main character is a killer for hire. But she also has a romance pen name that she shares with her mom. I actually have names of characters who are characters in their stories. So it's like a characterception sort of thing. So basically I need this name generator. And then I really love this like corkboard feature, seeing everything at a glance, and then you can do it individually for each of the chapters too, which is really helpful for me as I tend to have multiple scenes in the chapters. And it's gonna make them drag and drop much easier, especially because this is the first story I've outlined, and stuck to in a really long time. Usually I make an outline, I attempt an outline, like Freytag's pyramid or something, but I don't actually stick to what I came up with. Lots of the time it's because I enjoy the zero draft process and just kind of figuring out what story I wanted to tell, but I wanted to try something new. I wanted to see if I could create an outline and stick to it, or as I'm going to be doing today, create the outline but continue to like update the outline as stuff changes. So like I've been working on chapter 6, which was giving me some issues, but now that I figured out that, when I was looking at chapter 7, I'm like, okay, I need to add a few more things in here. So it's gonna either be a very beefy chapter 7, or I'm going to split it into 2 chapters, which of course is something that would affect the outline. So basically I'm just gonna attempt to re-outline with what I've learned as I've written, and then I'm still sticking to the meat of what I originally wanted the story to be, or what I thought the story was going to be. So I'm finding there's wiggle room in the outline. I think in part because I'll show you my Google outline. I got a lot of ideas while I was just on a walk, so I was kind of word vomiting them onto the page, and then I came up with an outline and kind of tried to separate it off into acts based off of the colors. But question number 3, were you able to write for yourself, not schoolwork, during various levels of school? And middle school and high school, this was true. I was also kind of shy and I moved around a lot, so there would be plenty of classes where I didn't have a lot of friends, so I could just kind of take my notebook and like pretend I was taking notes on the class and just write my story out. I hope I can find this journal at some point, but I would like write in English class and I would put at the top like Tale of Two Cities notes, you know, whatever our project was surrounding that, and then I would just write my story. So I would date it, I would put my name, I'd do all the stuff as if I were going to turn in this assignment, and then I would just write my story out there. And no one was really any the wiser, and it was wonderful. When I got to university, I did create an on-campus organization about writing, and I participated in the NaNoWriMos. That was actually some of my favorite NaNoWriMos were during my university years, and having that on-campus writing organization was just wonderful. I met a lot of friends through there that are still my friends today. But outside of November and outside of those meetings, I wasn't writing a whole lot, just as my classes were taking up more time. But it was when I got out of school that I actually found writing to be even harder to juggle, especially as my corporate job got busier. So I applaud anyone at any stage of their life who's able to sort of fit writing in. I think that is an amazing thing in itself, to love writing so much that you're able to find time or make time or take a break from it but come back to it. So since we were talking about outlining, question 4, how do you outline? So let us take a quick break from this room and go attempt to fix my outline. Let's go, computer. Hiya. Zelda, I need you to get up so that I can go outline. Zelda, go ahead, baby girl. Go. No. Zelda, I need you to get off. Go. Beautiful. I set my camera on here to film. And I had to use the light. It's fine. Let's do this. Okay, now I have through chapter 7 done. So I think this is answering it for me that I'm probably going to want to split chapter 7 into 2 and have chapter 7 and chapter 8. They're gonna take place in different locations, so that's also a big reason to change the chapters, especially as chapter 7 was already getting pretty long. That's my only thought process for it. They're both going to achieve different things as well. I am finding that having an outline it's nice. Again, I don't want to, this is just a new experiment for me. So it might work for this story and it might not work for other stories, but it's nice having the outline because I know that like, once I write that scene, I've achieved it and I can move on. Whereas when I'm zero drafting and I'm like, I have no idea how many scenes this story is going to be. I have no idea when I'm getting to like the 50% mark versus like anything else. It's nice to have some amount of certainty and being like, okay, I've achieved the things that needed to happen in Act 1. I'm now in Act 2. I need to achieve these things and I need to also have these little hints and layers from here and be like, oh, yeah. Whether I'm still gonna like it as I'm farther along remains to be seen. But basically I did another version of Freytag's pyramid that I took Save the Cat and kind of went through that and made any notes that I didn't already have in my sort of chapter by chapter outline for what I thought needed to happen. And then I just sort of go, Or like this time where I have moved around some pieces, I'm just fixing the outline as I go. And the drag and drop in Scrivener I think is gonna be helpful here. I also do love, I mentioned before how you can break down the chapters into scene cards. So right now, I just have the description of each chapter. But after I'm farther along in doing this, once I have all of the chapters added here, I'm going to break down then the scenes. And I'm usually only putting like a sentence or two per scene, but basically it's telling me the important information that is revealed or the things that happened, a character's first appearance, etc. Yes, I've said it before and I'll say it again. One of my favorite things was talking to Becca, and she said that my zero draft just sounded like her sort of outline, her long outline. And talking on the Twitch streams, I've realized how often we all have different definitions of outline. Some people have a mini outline and then a bigger outline that they do, or a thin and a thick outline. That was the fun part. Anyway, so it's just crazy to me, as always, how we're all doing the same thing, but doing it in very different ways, which to me means that, you know, as someone who learns something new with each book, and I've learned that different processes work for different genres sometimes too, maybe I haven't yet found out my perfect outlining method or my perfect drafting method or anything like that, you know? And that's kind of cool to think about. Question number 5 is, how do you feel about writing only when inspiration hits, or should it be a tool that is honed every day? I've taken several of the master classes, and I think one of the ads that one of the master class instructors has, I can't remember which one it is, talks about how if you want to be a writer, you basically can't wait for inspiration to strike. But I think the unspoken word there is if you want to be a professional writer. I think like a lot of other hobbies, if you are just enjoying the fun of writing a book, it's okay to wait until inspiration strikes, or it's okay to do that now, but then when you're a professional writer later, not wait until inspiration strikes. I do think it is a muscle that you got to exercise in order to like hone it, but I don't know that you necessarily need to be like all beefed up if you're doing it as a hobby, right? That being said, I spoke earlier about how I skip scenes sometimes when I'm just not feeling it. This is something that I still do. I'm not gonna do it for this project, the Scrivener one. But writing can be an emotionally driven act. Is act what I want to say? We are creating something that did not exist before, and sometimes that could be a really sad scene or it could be a really happy scene, but I'm going through something sad right now and I just do not have it in me to do it. I find that AuthorTube can be really similar. Like there are some days that I just do not feel like filming, and I'll tell you what, there's nothing worse than trying to force myself to film on those days. I've learned that it's better to just not do it. And sometimes that's true for writing too. Sometimes you need a 3-day break, or you didn't realize how hard you were pushing yourself or whatever. I think the saying that I like better is like, you have to show up. You can't wait for the inspiration, but sometimes showing up and just writing a few sentences is all the invitation that inspiration needs, right? So I don't necessarily feel inspired right now pre-sitting down, but I will take the time and I will be here in case inspiration does strike. I also think it gets easier as with all other things, so maybe the inspiration happens more, or it's like you need less sentences for inspiration to strike. I don't know. You can help me? Or are you judging? What do you hear? Oh, get it. Oh, get it. All right, after filling out the entire outline, I now have 18 chapters. And initially I had 16, so separating chapter 7 into 2, and then I had one other space where I shuffled some stuff around. I think this means that I'll probably shuffle some more stuff, but I feel really solid about it. I feel like I got all the arcs. I'm excited for the connective bits to like finally tether in. There's a mystery aspect, a whodunit aspect, so this is my second whodunit style that I've attempted in full. Previously I did Murder Mystery Tennessee, and I basically realized I had done a cardinal sin of that genre. So now I think I understand the genre better, and I think I got it. I think I got it. Anyways, question Question number 6 is one I've been asked before, but not quite in this way. And it ties in with this project. So, can you make writing a steady revenue stream whilst keeping it something you can turn to when trying to relax? I think so. It just requires specific parameters. So for like this project, making it a streaming only project has kept it fun. It means I look forward to each of the streams. I know exactly what I'm going to work on, and I don't feel any responsibility to work on it outside of streams. So it's, in quotes, taking longer than, you know, other projects that I spend more time on, but that's helped it be fun. It's just, for me right now, it's just to get better at this kind of genre, to get better at mystery, and I like it and it's fun. And so yes, I guess the answer is yes. I do think you have to be wary when stuff starts to seep into, can I monetize all this stuff? And I'm not saying I wouldn't ever publish this one or attempt to do something to monetize it down the line, but for right now, that's not the purpose of it at all. So it's kept it really fun, and yeah. Rachel Writes has had a really lovely discussion about this, as has Shaylin Writes, so I will leave them linked both down below. Question number 7 is, if this is my first serious book I've written, how do I know if it should be shelved or pursued for publication? When do you know it's time for you to publish? And is this dependent on how many books you've written in the past? This is such a tough personal question, and it's so dependent on so many different factors. Lots of authors in the trad pub world will tell you that the first book that they sold is not the first book that they queried, and the first book that they queried is not the first book that they finished. There's a lot of layers to it, and part of that is there's lots of rejection along the way. Sometimes you're just not writing something as marketable, sometimes your skills aren't good enough yet, sometimes your subgenre isn't hot. There's so many different reasons why someone's first book is not the one that's first published. I love the indie publishing world, I love the self-publishing world, but I think there is a fear, or there's a bigger push now where it's like, if you have the book written and done, why not publish it? You get into a really weird spiral with, when do I ever know if it's good enough? And I don't know that we ever do that. You rely on beta reader feedback and just hope that you have good people reviewing it who will chat with you and let you know in advance if this is just not, if it's not ready. But also there are plenty of people who have published their first book and they've gotten better each book. I think we always get better with each book that we write, or each new genre that we try, we learn a different skill. So that's not to say you can't do it. I personally don't know where the line is here either. I don't think publication is dependent on how many books you've written before, but I would be wary in attempting to indie publish the first book that you've ever completed, unless you just want that book for yourself and you're not trying to make a huge big career out of it, or you're willing to change pen names if this one doesn't work out. I'd maybe try and finish 2 or more books just to see if you've learned and grown, but that's if I had to put a number on it, when really I think the only indication is if beta readers like it. But this does lead us to the final question, which is, what is your process for editing after the first draft? Now, I feel like this particular project is perfect to talk about it because this is the first time that I'm editing while I write, so I'm not allowing myself to move on to a new chapter until I've edited through completely the previous chapter. And I try to give myself a day between when I finish a chapter and editing it. Sometimes I'll edit it that night if I finished in the morning, but usually I like to give myself a little bit of space to go back and reread it. And chapters have obviously taken me multiple days, sometimes like with chapter 6, like 3 freaking weeks now. As I'm only allowed to write in this like 2-hour time period, but actually only like an hour and something of that is writing time. It's been a very interesting sort of experiment to see how quickly I write when those are the parameters. But the editing process for this one will look like giving it some breathing room. After I type the end, we're just gonna shelve it for 2 months. Shelve project. Then fully reread the project. And as it is the first edit, this is the time for the big structural changes. So if I realize like a character is unnecessary, if I realize that, you know, some of my subplots are kind of convoluted, or the webs that I want leading into this ultimate mystery are not tied up, this is where I would fix that. If I think my characters aren't interesting enough here, if I think I need another subplot, this is where I would try to add them in. This also for me means less editing and more just fully rewriting the story. That doesn't mean I won't take whole chunks of the text of the draft and just copy and paste them over, but when it comes time to add scenes or add paragraphs to help flesh out the scene or whatever else, I will be completely writing new material here. This is my process after every first draft. But it's gonna be really interesting to see as I fully outline this one and as I'm editing my outline as I go, and also because I'm editing while I write, if it's gonna result in a much cleaner draft, and if, because this is the second like mystery thriller that I'm working on, more mystery than thriller, though there are quite a few deaths, a couple deaths. And more hinted at, it's fine. Because of that, I can't wait to see if, since I did arguably more upfront work, if that results in less editing time or rewriting, revising time. Like if I won't have these huge chunks that need to be rewritten. I think once you're in it, if you're in the thick of it, no matter what, when you're drafting, there's inevitably something that's pretty big that you can't see. And right now, obviously I can't see it, I'm in it. So it'll be fascinating to return back to this vlog once I'm done. Yeah, but that is gonna be it for me. Please do comment down below, answer any and all of these questions. I would love to hear about your perspectives. Also let me know if there's any like really fast Scrivener hacks that you love. I talked about the name generator and the split view, literally like 2 buttons each. And it is such a time saver. It is so helpful. I would love to learn more of those little hacks. But thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you especially to some of my new patrons this month. Shannon Davis, Carrie in My Atlantic Teacher Life, Wendy Fisher, Almondine, and Kayla. And I will see you all very soon with a new video. Bye! As has Shaylin writes. As has. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or do I go out farther so you can see a little bit of books? And just like scoot closer. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.